Hello, my friends. I love spending this time with you. I know it's been a little bit, but I'm back and I'm grateful for today. And I wanted to share some thoughts with you about the past, how to relate with it, how to work with it. And for the sake of this video, I'm going to keep it to your current incarnation. So I'm going to be doing a future video about your past lives. And if that's something that interests you, please drop me a comment so that I know how much interest there is in it. But I would like to talk about past lives. But for the sake of keeping it simple, I'm laying some ground rules, if you will, today about, and tips and thoughts about how to relate to the past. And for many people, the past is a place of either running to and staying in, or running as fast as they can away from. And the truth is that either way will keep you stuck. So if you do that tendency, we met people who will glorify the glory days. They'll go back. They want to live in the past. Everything around them magnifies the past. Well, what happens is if you get stuck in the past, then what happens is it robs you of the opportunities. It robs you of being present and seeing what's around you now. And it's a shame because you will have life pass you by. And at some point you wake up and go, how many years has it been? A bit like that old fairy tale of Rip Van Winkle, who slept for at least a century or so. But then the opposite also tends to happen, where people will run from their past. They don't want to look at it. They don't talk about it. And that also is as ensnaring as wanting to just live in the past. And the reason being is if you're running and you're running, ultimately you can't outrun yourself. You cannot run your past. And it will have as much control over your decisions and how you live, and maybe even subconsciously even more so, than stopping, catching a breath, and taking a look at it. So if you're living, blocking your past, it's really unfortunate because at that point as well, you are robbing yourself of learning. So there's that old saying that those who do not learn from the past are condemned to repeat it. So really what I would like to talk to you about in relation to that is how we really recall the past, as human beings. And even as, even our animal friends is very similar, where we think we remember the past. But in truth is that we remember impressions of the past. We remember the emotions of the past. And with that, we will have our powers of perception on, right? The way that you see it is the way you'll recall it. And if people say, no, I recall perfectly, well, quite honestly, folks, if that were the case, we would need video cameras and things like that to record exactly what was going on. So you need to remember that as you look at the past, it will bring up emotions. You have to remember that it is the way you were perceiving it at the time. And this is the way we do with memory. So a better way in the future that I find for me that helps is I don't deny the emotional impact or the mental impression that it has given to me when I have had an experience. But then I will take time to sit down, and it doesn't have to be an hour, so it could just be a moment. But to take a look at what was my perception of the past versus what really happened. And if you find yourself boggled, then this is where, again, talking to others, or, that's why we take videos to remember and see what the past was. And so with this, I would like to mention the layers. So if you start looking back at the past, basically what created your past? Well, obviously things you did, but I'm talking about really being able to examine it. So the first thing is, whether it be personal history, whether it be looking at history recorded about a time period, is looking at the era, looking at the culture, what was considered normal. And, consider that today we would laugh very much that it was considered a truth that if you rode on any vehicle that was faster than the gallop of a horse, your heart would stop. That the sicknesses and things that we have today were caused strictly by fairies and goblins, and we wouldn't have the herbal medicines and the scientific medicines that we have today. So taking a look at what was considered to be normal or correct, regardless of whether it is true or not today, is important. It sends a context by which the memory, the past event that you're looking at, needs to be acknowledged. The other one I would say to you is that, who were you then? We look back at pictures of ourselves and we smile at who we were, but that is very valid. Not only is it the cultural context, but in that moment of time, how much, was your knowledge of the world or of yourself? What was your line of thought? What was your way of responding? Because that had as much to do as far as laying the background and groundwork of how that memory played out as anything else. And I have to say, don't get into this trap of right or wrong. Right now, it's just taking a look at and examining it. And with that, really, I can't emphasize enough that a lot of times people, and I'm one of those people, that will tend first to make myself feel bad about something when I have to reflect on, well, maybe I had limited information. You can only go with as much as you know about the situation, the person, whatever it is that you're working with, and you're operating from there. So when you're looking back at that, how much did you know? And, it doesn't matter, oh, I should have asked these questions, I should have not. That's part of the wisdom that comes from this. And finally, what I would say is, as you go forward tracking patterns of the past, see what sort of relationships and events, what developed from that, what grew from that. And this is the way that you examine it. You begin to examine it. So with that in mind, it's like, okay, Skyfire, that's great. So we know how to look at it. So what do we do with it? So here's my recommendations for it. Just as there's different layers of or elements of looking at the past in order to understand it better, there's also different layers that you need to do in order to be able to incorporate it. And with that is, keep things in perspective. It is important that you understand that you did what you did for the person that you were in the time period that you're in. So keep that in perspective, and also to acknowledge and be prepared that different emotions will come up, bad, good. And if it's something that you're unpackaging, especially if you're working on something, before you really start diving deep into the past or into a problem, make sure that you have a way to safely process those emotions. If you start running into problems that you can identify but are bigger than you, then where you have a place or people that you can talk to help you with that. And what I would have to say in addition to this is all too frequently there could be this desire to quickly go, this person was guilty, this person was good. In order to truly be able to take benefit from your life experiences, embrace and look at equally what came from them, the wisdom that came from it, both bad and good. Look at it all together, and don't. I'm going to say, when I say don't judge it, I mean discern. Judge in a neutral sense. This is a good thing that happened, and the good patterns. These are the bad things that happened, and so and something very important, especially if you're working on something very profound, is it's okay not to get over it. So that's something that I find very irritating as far as culturally speaking, that when I'm helping people to assist them to move through trauma, to be able to assist them to move through grief or something major that happened in their lives, could even be good change, but they're major changes. And this culture also has this bit of tick-tock, tick-tock, you over it yet? It's okay. If it's something deeper that you're working on, remember that it is a process and it can take time. And if it's something that really made a very deep impression on you, don't think about when will I get over this. Respect it that a major event has left a deep impression on your life, but it doesn't have to dictate your life. And that's very, very key that I would say to you. So when you're wanting to finally apply the wisdom. The number one thing that I would have to tell you, and I'm going to be making another video about this, is when you react, and especially if it's subconscious about the past, remember this is now. That was then. This is now. And the video I'm going to be making is how to create new frames of reference, because that can be very tricky if you've been used to responding in a certain way or thinking a certain way for all of your life. And you're finding that you have the awareness of it needs to change. You have a sense of how it needs to go, but you have no idea how to connect the dots. But that'll be another video that I'll be doing, is creating future frames of reference. But when you do this, that just, it's okay. It's okay to say, wait a minute, and you'll catch yourself. Am I responding to the environment in the way, in the person with who I am now, or is it just a knee-jerk reaction? The other thing that I would say to you in this regard, I'm sorry, I have Indy here, is that make sure that when you start looking at the past, and I've been guilty of it, I can get into minutiae and down the rabbit hole. I could have a rabbit hole contest, and I'm sure we all have from time to time. But when you start distilling that wisdom, of good or bad, that you make it relevant to the present. In other words, don't keep on spinning your wheels with the emotions. Don't keep on spinning your wheels, reliving the same thing over and over and over again. When you get wisdom and say, okay, fine, I've finally got done, taking what is useful from this, then at this point, it's on you, and you can have help to say, okay, I now have this understanding of myself. I understand how I respond in relationships to certain environments. And it's okay to say, I don't know how to connect the dots. Then you seek someone who can be your sounding board. Or you begin to brainstorm. This is wonderful information that I've gotten. And how can I make it so that I learn? So you learn things about how you work. You learn about some conceptions you had about the world that was maybe served you at the time, but no longer. And with these revelations, how you begin to apply them. And so with this, the other two things that I would say about this is, whenever possible, share. Share what you've learned. I guess I come from that idea that we are one family. And whenever appropriate, share. It's whether it be just talking to somebody, you don't have to be writing a book. Maybe even like this, do a video. But share what you've learned. And especially if this deals with relationships that are around you, if you start having deeper understandings about yourself, about things that have gone on, and this could be a workplace relationship, it could be a romantic relationship, or with a group of friends, and it allows for there to be a deeper bond, because there is understanding, there can be a better way of communication. And with this in mind, when I say this, when appropriate, so it doesn't mean that you have to say, okay, here's full access. People who are trustworthy, there should be reciprocation in this. Things should go both ways, not just one way. And I guess my final thoughts about how to apply this is, don't do something, and I guess I'm going to get into my soapbox for a moment. Honor what you've been through. Don't sanitize it. Don't minimize it. Don't catastrophize it. No. Honor it. So acknowledge what you've been through. Acknowledge your part in it. I'm not talking about guilt. Just acknowledge your part in it. And with that, what you're going to find is it becomes wonderful, because what happens is you will learn that your past becomes this fantastic resource of insight, at times enlightenment. And with that, you can use this to develop and build a better future. If it was something where we all make mistakes, okay, don't go down, that road again. Or if it's something you did fantastically, oh, how can I expand this? And when you do this, you do it for your benefit, and the benefit for your greater good, and the greater good of all beings. So with it, my friend, I know I've went on a little bit, but I guess I've been seeing a lot recently with world events where people are talking about the past, and I'm here like, you know what? I'd like to add my 2 cents to that. So with that, please honor yourselves. Take time to honor who you were, take the wisdom from that, and then allow yourself that liberation to be completely present and to be reborn with melding what is useful of the past with the beauty of the future. And so this, my friends, Wanishi, bright blessings. Until we speak again, take care.